when you use Apple Pay, that's real money.
You know what time it is. Americans saying absolutely wild things on the internet. And it's not a surprise. We've seen time and time again, and a lot of Americans saying some off-the-wall stuff and standing by it. I mean, I've even done the same thing. I'm definitely not innocent. You can even see some of those clips all over my YouTube channel in the past, and maybe some even recently. But anyways, today we're going to be getting into some of the wildest things Americans have said. And if you guys have heard anything wild from us that was absolutely dumb, off the wall, or all of the above, let me know in the comments down below. But we actually had a lot of messages from you guys. If you guys ever want to send me your own personal stories of something that you've heard from one of us Americans out there, feel free to send me a message on my Instagram account, JamesBray3. I'll link it down below. I actually received a message from one of you guys and it says, "Hey, sorry, I don't have Discord, but I wanted to share a funny story with you directly. So I'm Polish and I worked as a waitress a few months ago, just a summer job. One day an American came in, ordered food and drinks. Then I brought it all out to him. He looked at his Coke or whatever he ordered and asked me, 'Where's the ice?' And I replied, 'Sorry, this isn't the US. You can't report me. You're the foreigner here.' He looked so embarrassed that for a few days when he came to eat, he didn't say a thing about the lack of ice. I got the best laugh of my life with my colleague and didn't have to bother with his American bullshit. That's proof that Poles have humor, and we genuinely like to get a good laugh while also showing that we know what's going on in the world." That's diabolical. Honestly, I don't even know how I would have responded. I definitely would have laughed for sure. I'm like, okay, all right. I mean, America's been going through it a lot recently. Poland's been going through some things with a few neighbors and whatnot, and it's been pretty high tensions around the globe, I think, as a whole. But if we're just locking in on the United States itself, we've been running a very interesting generational run this year, and it might not be the best. Anyways, this next one is a comment from my last video from one of you guys, which says, "I'm Portuguese but living in Canada. I work for a clinic and had an American couple from Texas call in saying that they had lived in Canada for a few years and needed us to send them their health records. The last time they were in the clinic was in 2015. We do not keep records on site for more than 5 years, and they are destroyed after 10. It's the law. Therefore, the patient files were set to be destroyed this year. We don't have access to it unless it's subpoenaed. I explained that to them and the response was, 'What the hell? So I have to sue you?' I started laughing and said, 'No, this is not the US. We were able to get them what they needed another way, but it's just hilarious and very American that that was the go-to.' Yeah, we're notorious for suing people or threatening to sue people when we don't get what we want or if there's any minor iota of an inconvenience, and it's kind of embarrassing, I'm not gonna lie.
Take my arm, little boy! Touch me and I sue you for sexual harassment.
I didn't even realize how much we did that until I realized, doing these videos, we were getting memed on hard from not just Europeans, but everybody around the world. Every time, like, yeah, when we get Americans traveling here and stuff like that, if they don't get what they want, they're like,
"You know what? I said I wasn't gonna sue you guys, but you guys are next. Starting with this store."
"Oh my gosh, you'll be hearing from my lawyer." And I'm like, oh my goodness, bro. But it's so different. I mean, you can't just randomly sue people overseas and expect it to go your way, right? Because the laws are different. I don't know. It's crazy work to me. I didn't even realize that we did it that much. But our final comment from my last video from one of you guys actually says, "Australian here. In Zurich, Switzerland 2018, around the time of the World Economic Forum, despite the good food, a couple of male US tourists complained to one of the waitresses in a local restaurant that their bill was incorrect, that the pizza back home was better and cheaper, and attempted to pay in USD. When the manager explained to them that the restaurant dealt in Swiss francs and euros but did not take Visa and MasterCard, they predictably opted to use Amex. One of the US men then told the restaurant manager the classic line that the US had liberated their country and that they should be more grateful. When the manager explained that Switzerland had been neutral during World War II, the Americans said, 'If it wasn't for us, you'd be speaking German.' The staff and other guests inside the restaurant then shared a glance and immediately switched to High German for the remainder of the stay of the US guests." And I bet you the guests did not understand a singular word. They were like, "What? What the heck? Oh my God." Words that bit them in the booty. That's hilarious too. I mean, it's like, oh, if it weren't for us, you'd be speaking German. It's like, well, plot twist, we all can speak German. Like, what are you talking about? Ignorance at its finest. Oh my gosh. I'm telling you, in times like these, we need a good laugh. Okay, we need a good laugh. So anyways, moving on to our first post, let's go ahead and get right into this thing. So shove that list up your, I have no idea what the context is, but it's alluding to something diabolical, as I say all the time. I just bought a fifth of whiskey, a new gun, a dozen donuts, and parts to upgrade my new firearm, all in the same store, and stopped to kill a limit of ducks on the way home on public land. There's a precisely 0% chance Ireland/the UK is more free than America, so shove that list up your ass. LOL. Oh my God. This cannot end well. First of all, I get it. Guns and bacon and killing ducks and animals and all that other good stuff. That's just a way of life out in the United States. But I mean, and I guess maybe other places too, but with guns and stuff like that, we're absolute fiends when it comes to it, man. For some reason, we all own a plethora of guns, not just a standard shotgun for the house or whatever. We have AR-15s and, you know, different assortments of handguns and everything in between. It's insane. If you were to ask me, summarize America in a statement, the first half of that post would have been the statement I would have read off to let you guys know how it's like in America. Americans have so little freedom. They have to do all their shopping at one store. They're only allowed to buy fattening treats there in order to keep them docile, so they have to forage for protein on the way home. Yeah, that's insane. That's insane. And it's true, unfortunately. Our cheapest food is anything that is fattening, sugary, and low in protein. The higher the protein content it is in the United States, the more expensive it's going to be, and the healthier the food items are, the more expensive it's going to be. But no matter whether or not the food is healthy or not, we do have chemicals in our food that will eventually poison us anyway, so we're doing the best with what we have, okay? Consumerism and killing. Yeah, sounds like Yankee freedom, all right. Yeah, I guess when you do ask us what freedom looks like in America, we'd probably say something along those lines, like I mentioned earlier. So this person also has a point. Freedom is gangs of extrajudicial mercenaries roaming your streets, disappearing people. What these nitwits don't understand is once they've purged non-whites, they're gonna purge the non-elite whites. The Heritage Foundation hates their supporters more than anyone else, but they are useful idiots right now, so they will continue to be used as their rights, Medicare, Medicaid, and jobs are stripped away. It would be fascinating to observe if it was a controlled experiment under glass. Problem is, it's affecting the entire world. The US is a world cancer stage 4. Ooh, God damn, tell me how you really feel. That hurt. Oh my God. The thing is, I've asked this question a lot of times, and I personally still have hope that a lot of this can be turned around. It'll take a long time. I feel like it'll take a solid at least decade to undo some of the things that have been done right now. But my question to you, and I ask it in a lot of these videos because I am genuinely curious, do you think the way the world perceives America today will change drastically for the better in the future? Is that even possible at this rate? Because there are so many things and policies, especially foreign policies, that have changed for the worse recently within the last 7 months that have tarnished a lot of relationships internationally, that have a lot of people scratching their head. They're like, are you an ally? Are you an enemy? We don't know. You know what I mean? So it's very interesting, and it's honestly terrifying. Waking up every day, looking at my phone, the headlines on standard news outlets, even though a lot of them do be spewing propaganda, for the most part, it's insane because it's like the first time in a long time I've been locked into major headlines in the news, because it actually changes the way that we have to live on a day-by-day basis based on what's going on at the tippy top. What policies are being pushed versus what policies are being taken away and revamped, and not in the best way possible. It's scary times right now. Scary times. Like I said, we need a laugh. So let's go ahead and move on to the next post, which says proper safety regulations. Now here in this post, we have a image and it says no more vans. It's absolutely wild. Now the top reply here says, got a Toyota Hiace Commuter Deluxe. It's a 15-seater van. It's better than an SUV in terms of hauling a family of 7. Have plenty of luggage space in the rear. It's a manual diesel, easy to drive and to park in most areas. I love it. Probably not going to sell it. Underneath that comment, it says, unfortunately not available in countries with proper safety regulations. And underneath that, it says, well, Toyota Hiace has a 5-star NCAP rating, so I'm glad they remodeled the old Hiace with a hood than keeping the overcab design. This one kind of went over my head a little bit, and then I looked into it again and I'm like, oh my God, I almost defaulted myself, because obviously the safety regulations we have in the United States are entirely different than what they look like all over the world. And I think that actually affects the type of vehicles you can drive, what the vehicles are able to do. I do know that in some states in the United States, there's emissions checks, not everywhere, but in some states there definitely are. And I do know worldwide, depending on what countries you go to, same thing. And it can get more and more intricate depending on where you decide to go to and live and whatnot. Very interesting stuff. Our comment here, though, says, because South Korean cars don't get the highest safety ratings, including in the US. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I don't think Toyota is Korean. I'm pretty sure it's Japanese, if I'm not mistaken.
Trump is the closest thing to God.
Trump is the closest thing to God, really?
Absolutely, absolutely. He's what's gonna fix this nation. This nation's corrupt. We're all split. America used to be all together.
Yeah.
Now we're all split up. Why? We need to come back together. The only person who's gonna mold us is God first, and then Trump.
God, then Trump.
God, then Trump. Absolutely.
So Trump is selling Bibles for $60.
Okay.
Is that he's profiting off of selling Bibles? Is that a godly thing to do?
Absolutely, it's a business. He's a businessman. That's what this country needs. What do we need?
And if the business is selling the Bible, that's okay?
That's perfectly fine. What are churches doing? When you go to church, don't they ask you for $1? Don't they ask you to do this and that? Churches are businesses. This whole country's a business.
That clip aged like spoiled milk. I don't think right now the message is coming together in the United States. The United States right now is more divided than ever. Perfectly normal country. Yeah, our country has nothing wrong with it at all, actually. Nothing wrong at all. It's one of the best countries on the entire planet. We have so many problems, it's insane. Eventually, hopefully, things fix themselves, I guess. Hopefully. Fingers crossed. This next comment you're going to need to grab your popcorn for because it is a lengthy one, but it makes several great points. And it says, I used to view people as generally rational and logical. When I was young, I'd ask, how did people in Germany accept fascism? And I thought it was a bizarre quirk of the time. Like I thought maybe in the past, hierarchy was much more important. And in Germany and other places, when your boss asked you to do something, back then, people always did what they were told without question. But I guess now I see why. Sadly, a high portion of the population were raised in authoritative households where what the parent says goes no matter what. No matter how illogical or stupid, what they say matters and you don't talk back. And many of these households, what priests say is respected as fact simply because they are higher in the hierarchy of control. This hierarchy is people respected by others in the group. So if a priest hates Obama and likes Trump, the group likes Trump. I think Trump recognized this and used the power of the church to get elected by doing a quid pro quo with the large churches and catering to them, telling them to support him and he will support them. So Trump is someone that these crazy Americans see as authoritative and in control. They respect him as a result. They respect the strong man. Presidents that abuse their power, consolidate power, and act in an authoritative way gain respect. The propaganda also plays a huge part in reinforcing this. The propaganda makes people in the in group look like they always support him no matter what. This makes it seem like Trump is the top of the hierarchy, and it's why propaganda is so effective on them. It's also why they say he's like God. In their mind, he's the top of the hierarchy like a god. He can do anything he wants because he knows the psychology of his voters. They will always support him, and if he does something they don't like, he can easily manipulate them. Of course, it's not Trump that thought of this, probably Stephen Miller and the Goon Squad. It's borderline kind of like some Charles Manson shiznit, because Charles Manson did the similar thing, you know, he kind of went really extreme with what he did though, you know what I mean? But I guess when you put it that way, it kind of makes sense. Oosh. I mean, because you think about it, I mean, there are people who will defend actions of a leader that, you know, has obviously made some not great calls, and the people, the followers, will make every excuse for the leader. The leader doesn't even have to make the excuse. They'll just continue about their day like nothing happened, but their followers will make the excuses and, you know, exceptions for them. And time again, they get manipulated and they're running in this eternal hamster wheel of bullshit. It's crazy. But our next comment says, they are so fucked over there. Help, okay? Help us, please. Anyways, our next post says, we know geography. Oh no. Another dig at our geographical intelligence or the lack thereof. And the post said, I think it's so funny when people from Europe are like, Americans don't know geography. I think Europeans don't understand just how big the US is. Most Americans don't even have to travel outside the US to go on vacation. You can travel for 24 hours in Texas and still be in Texas. It would take weeks to drive across country. Meanwhile, you can drive through 3 countries in 2 hours in Europe. We know geography. It helps that all your countries are the size of our states. LOL. And of course, like I always say, the comment section clapped back and remains undefeated. As the first comment says, Europe is small, therefore we know geography. And the correlation between those two is? Yeah, that makes absolutely no sense. When I read that, it's like, oh, well, America's so much bigger and Europe is so much smaller. And I'm like, yeah, okay, that has no correlation to whether or not you know your way around your own country or Europe. It makes no sense. Like, you didn't display anything or say anything that would allude to the fact that because you did something, you understand and know more geography. You just basically stated that one country is bigger than a continent and therefore you know more geography? Like, that doesn't make any sense, my guy. You need to read what you write before you post it, because it didn't hit the way I think you thought it did. Anyways, our next comment says, you can drive in Europe for 27 years if you keep taking left turns. That is pretty insane. That is pretty insane. I didn't know that, but now I know. Okay, now I know. Being able to drive for 24 hours and still be in Texas is not the flex a person thinks it is. All it proves is that the U.S. transportation system is crap. And you're absolutely right. I think one big thing we can absolutely improve throughout the United States is our public transportation systems. Like, we have slim to damn near none in most places. And if we do have them, they're not really that good. Now, in big cities like New York, Chicago, absolutely phenomenal. California, I don't know if it's great, but I know it's there. So there's another place where it works very well. And there's a few other cities here and there where it works, but not great. You know what I mean? But if we were to take all of the United States and summarize the public transportation throughout all of it, it's not that great and it needs upgrades, and we do need to expand throughout the entirety of the United States, because I mean, there's definitely people who would like to not have to drive everywhere and would rather commute. And I'm pretty sure funneling money into the public transportation system nationwide throughout the United States would actually boost the economy, because you'd have more people paying for bus passes and things of the sort. And they don't have to worry about spending an arm, a leg, and a goat sacrifice on a car. So in a world where the United States is asking for more money so we don't find ourselves in the current situation we're in now, government shutdown, I mean, I think public transportation would be one of the things to help the economy out a little bit, but I could be wrong. I don't know. I don't know nothing about economics. Does the UK even have dishwashers? Without even looking at this, I'm gonna go ahead and say, yeah, they probably do. It's 2025. I'm pretty sure a lot of places have dishwashers. Good Lord. Anyway, now in this post it says, does the UK even have dishwashers? The blurb underneath that says, I think of this very mundane task. I tell the wife I washed the dishes when in reality I threw them in some contraption to do the work for me. I wonder if the UK has dishwashers though. I don't know how I ever could live without one. For real, paper plates are a thing in my house. I know that some don't rinse soap off across the pond, but are you all still doing it manually? I need to know. This person thinks that everyone in the UK is living in the Stone Ages, and this could have been answered through a simple Google search, okay? This did not have to be posted here, and now it has found its way in this video. Why would Brits need dishwashers when they haven't got electricity? Silly Americans. Playing along, I see. Playing along. Nice troll. Funny thing is, I'm pretty sure some people reading that comment probably took it seriously. Anyways, our next comment says, I thought I had a dishwasher, but it turned out I was just putting them all in a cupboard and badgers came in at night and licked them clean. Oh my God. Jesus Christ. The whole comment section is basically clapping back with jokes. You know what I mean? What I love is his comment about paper plates. Yes, the UK does have dishwashers. What we don't have is America's weird attachment to disposable tableware. The number of people I know over here who literally only own paper plates and just bin them after every meal is shocking. You know, it is funny. For a while, I bought paper plates and plastic cups and stuff like that because I didn't feel like doing a bunch of dishes, but you trade one thing for another, right? I mean, you accumulate more trash faster and you have to make more trips taking the garbage out and blah, 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 blah. So it's either like wash your dishes and it's better for you. You don't have to spend money on these flimsy disposable paper plates, cups, whatever. And maybe the dishes that you actually wash are better for you in some way, shape, or form. I don't know. That's just a guess. US is massive. Each state is like its own little country. Okay, well, let's look at the context for this. Oh, it's Chris the Sis. Her videos are hilarious. hilarious.
My name is Chris and I am 57 years old. I have 14 kids.
So at the top it says, like, I literally don't understand why no one here has a passport. Well, the top comment here says, the US is massive. Each state is like its own country. Half of Europe fits inside of Texas alone. Underneath that it says Europe is 10.53 square kilometers and the USA is 9.87 square kilometers. Underneath that it says, yeah, no. In size, Europe is basically the same as the USA. That's first. Second, thinking that a state is similar to a country here shows your uneducated ignorance. Again. Oh my God. And listen, that was just the first of many clapbacks, as our first comment says. Most Americans can't afford to travel. Very true, especially in times like this where the government is shut down and people are not getting paid. So yeah, people cannot afford to travel. It is a scary time right now. In fact, I don't think people want to travel with what's going on right now. I think people are more concerned about their health insurance costs and the meal that they're looking forward to eating next in the day, right? Because it's rough right now. 11% of Americans will never leave their state. Another 40% will never leave the country. Many are afraid or hate other states, and certainly afraid of the world outside their country's borders. That is very true, and it's propagated through our media. A lot of our media definitely discourages people from traveling outside of the United States, which is why on my channel I encourage heavily people to get out, explore, see the world for what it is, and then ultimately make a decision for yourself as far as where you would like to reside. If you would like to reside back in the United States, do that. And then also, I think you can come back with more knowledge so you understand what needs to be done to make your country a better place. I feel like you can't fully understand what you need until you look at what you're missing. And the best way to do that is traveling, I do think. Now, obviously, not everybody has the privilege or opportunity to travel. So I would say for the people who do it at least once in your life. You know, I think it would be very beneficial. It'll even have you looking at the world different. There's things that you currently value now that you might not value as much, or you might value way more through traveling. And that's something that I've realized traveling outside of the United States, and I'm very grateful. I want to see this map apparently only Americans have access to, where Texas is just this massive landmass the size of Pangea. Well, it's our standard map in the United States, and I think we inflate how big Texas is. It is a big state, but I think we overestimate how big that state is. I've even made statements like that before in the past in some of these videos where I'm like, well, Texas is huge. It takes us 3 days to drive through Texas. I don't know if you have any places like that throughout Europe, but you know, like I said, you can't compare apples to oranges. And if you look at the landmass of the continent of Europe and compare it to the landmass of the United States, very similar in size. But our next post, let's get into our next post. It says, why can't they just talk normal? Oh God, this is another one. Crazy. This is a crazy statement right here, because I think I know what this is alluding to. Accents. But if we look at this post, the top comment says, why can't they just talk normal? Now, the post it's referring to at the very top, it's faded out. It says, when I put on a new show and hear a British accent. You know where this is going. The responding comment says, it's our language. It's you who is speaking incorrectly. And underneath that, it says, nope, the English made up their current accent to sound aristocratic. Look it up. Americans speak with the original English accent. Huh? I don't think so, sir. I do not think so. That is not correct. But anyways, I don't have to tell you that. The comment section will, because our first comment says, seems like they never met any Brit ever. If they think everyone speaks like the British monarchy or BBC anchor. Yeah, 100%. Because I mean, dude, just watch an iShow speed stream. I mean, he was just in the UK. You got to see him talk to everybody. And then you can hear like what the accents sound like and everything. It was, again, I feel like maybe that's the most authentic way for you to see how Brits actually sound like. Turn on an IRL stream of anybody's that's in the UK, walking around, talking to people that live there, and then you'll get to see it in real time. I mean, it's not a bad suggestion since everybody loves watching streams, including mine at twitch.tv/JamesBray. If you haven't followed me over there, you might as well do that. It's in the description down below. Our next comment says, I love how they confidently shoot their bullshit into the other. I don't know what that last word is. I'm not gonna lie. What the fuck is that? Can somebody explain real quick? Because I had an aneurysm reading that last part. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hold up. They're always saying nonsense like there's more cultural difference between the North and South Dakota than there is between Spain and Austria. And now all Americans speak in a traditional British accent, whether they're from New Jersey or Alabama? Interesting observation. We have different accents, man. I mean, my accent is like this, and the next person's accent's gonna sound entirely different. So yeah, it just depends on where you grew up. I mean, there's different dialects and stuff, right? No matter where you go. If you live in a European country, let's say you live in Spain, the type of Spanish people speak throughout Spain is going to sound a bit different based on where they're located. You know what I mean? If you're in Germany, the type of German you speak is going to sound different based on where you are located. That's just kind of how it is. Same in the United States. Depending on what state you live in, your English is going to sound a little different based on where you live. So that being said, that's not that far-fetched. Not that far-fetched. Our next post says, Canada booed our anthem. We kicked their ass. Oh boy, here we go. We love to see these. Oh God, oh my God. As opposed to the hordes of British, French, Romanian, Greek, German, and all the other wealthy travelers from those countries all crowding around the Americans, making fun of us, remember, Canada booed our anthem. We kicked their ass. How's their economic boom going? I think the USA will make it out all right without them. Bye-bye. Yeah, we're a funny kind, aren't we? Fact is, we're ahead of you by leaps and bounds. You aren't even in the same hemisphere, literally and figuratively. Give yourself a break. Stop expecting to wake up and be free and capable of anything you want, because you are subjugated or are the subjugator. Good luck. Having fun where you are? This is insane. I mean, literally, this person typed this blurb up. He hit the post button and thought he was cooking. What the hell, brother? You didn't look into this? Something must have happened. This must have been like mid-argument or something, like, or he saw something he did not like and was left a nasty comment or whatever, because this was definitely brain rot that I just read to you guys. Now, the comment section handled this very well with grace, as the first comment says, when did the US kick Canada's ass? And no country can survive on its own. This US isolationism is getting tiresome. It's been proven dumb time and time again. Fact of the matter is, we need y'all. Y'all need us. Everybody needs everybody. There are resources that some people have that everybody needs, and vice versa. And if we can work together to have a synergistic vibe, I promise you, we'll be that much closer to world peace. 100%. But unfortunately, the United States is beefing with people like it has an agenda for a slew of boxing matches or something. I don't understand what's going on right now, and it's insane. Next comment says, the guy doesn't even know what a hemisphere is. Facts. I got that vibe. Also, I'm very curious. What did he mean by we beat Canada's ass? They insulted our anthem and we beat Canada's ass. How? What did we do to Canada? What exactly did we do to Canada? I'm so curious. Our next comment says, didn't Canada absolutely flatten the US hockey team after the anthem booing thing? See, I need context behind this whole debacle because I have no idea what they're talking about. If you guys know what they're referring to, please let me know in the comments down below because I am clueless. I'm clueless. Anyways, our next post says, this is America. Celsius is an energy drink. Oh my God, bruh. I think I just have to accept that people just exist like that. You know, we can say rage bait, clickbait, engagement bait, whatever, but at the end of the day, you have to understand how dumb a lot of people actually are. Right? Well, there's dummies in every country, right? We're just particularly covering the dumbasses in America. But come on, man. Oh, are we serious? Anyways, the post that this statement is referring to says, come back tomorrow morning for your scope, is the caption in the image that this whole conversation takes place in. So the top comment says, 41 degrees isn't a fever. That's very, very cold. Underneath that, it says, bro, it's Celsius. Underneath that, it says, this is America. Celsius is an energy drink, with the American flag at the end of this statement. Underneath that comment, the response is, this is America. Checks out for you. Oh my God, bro. Celsius is an energy drink. Oh my God. I can't believe this. Anyways, our first comment says, if my body temperature was 41 degrees Celsius or 41 Fahrenheit, I'm pretty sure that I need a doctor regardless of the temperature scale. That's what I was thinking. I'm like, wait a minute, 41 degrees Celsius? Brother, you're in flames. You're in flames. You're going to need a doctor and maybe an emergency like medical team or something, because it don't sound like you're doing too hot. There's some issues going on. If it's Fahrenheit, you're damn near dead. Yes, our next comment says, the moment you say the poster is from another country, country, the American will say, but this is an American-made platform. At this point, I know the full script. And after making these videos for quite a while and knowing some people who have had the same takes, I've had similar takes to this in the past, I also understand the full script. It's very unfortunate and hopefully it changes, but you know, Celsius is still sold in metric countries though. No one feels the need to go Fahrenheit is the title of a book. Yeah, exactly. It's like saying Fahrenheit 451 like pretty much is the only reason why the word Fahrenheit exists. Like, what are you talking about, bro? This guy's absolutely bonkers, bro. Something not right up here. Something is not right up in the skull cap. Let's move on to our next post. The UK uses kilometers to measure horsepower. And the top comment says, what the fuck is a kilometer? With American flags, American eagles, and more American flags. It has a ton of likes. It has like 36,000 likes. Now underneath that comment was how the UK measures their horsepower, right? Because they don't need to go fast or far in their little country. And underneath that it says LMAO. Well, brother. Well. So I guess the UK uses kilometers to measure horsepower. Oh my lord. Well, let's see what the comments had to say. Our first comment says, the only time Americans understand the metric system is when they use their 9mm pistol. Yeah, especially in schools and stuff, right? Too soon? Anyways, our next comment says, and yet the Americans choose to use inferior versions of the British imperial units. American gallons are smaller, as is the American pint, before you even get to the piss water that they fill them with. Hey, listen, our beer is you know what I'm saying? Like, it's different, but it's not piss water. We have one good beer in America, I believe, right? Something. But anyways, let's have a look at that next comment. We measure horsepower as 1 horse equals 1 horsepower because that wonderful USA invention, the car, hasn't reached us yet. Not that it matters, seeing as you could fit the whole of the UK inside Vermont with the space left over from France and Denmark. All facts sourced from USA Posts. More trolling, I see. More trolling. Oh boy. Anyways, our next post says, of course it's a lot easier to get around Germany. It's the size of Wisconsin. Another reference to how tiny Europe is and how massive the United States is. Let's go ahead and check this out. This post says, of course it's a lot easier to get around Germany. It's the size of Wisconsin. And underneath that it says, it's pretty difficult to get around Wisconsin without a vehicle. Yes, exactly. The transportation system in the United States, like I mentioned before, is absolutely abominable. And hopefully that changes for the better in the future. But again, the comment section was absolutely eating this individual up. As the first comment says, Germany is around 2.5 times bigger than Wisconsin, if anyone wondered. Yeah, I did not know that. I did think that Germany was bigger than Wisconsin, but I didn't know how much bigger. But oh my gosh, that's insane. So again, a little research goes a long way, but in a day and age where people are all about who's first and not who's right, no one really does or cares about research and stuff, and they kind of just believe and see whatever comes across their screens. It's terrible. It's the age of convenience. But our next comment says, Inner Mongolia is bigger than Texas, shocking the audience, and given China's constant new infrastructure projects, it's probably easier to navigate Ulaanbaatar than San Antonio. Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure if you guys, okay, so for me, I wound up watching IShowSpeed's stream a while back when he traveled to China and stuff like that, and one of the biggest things I noticed immediately was how elaborate the transportation system was over there. Like, they have it down to a wild science. It's futuristic on another degree. Now I'm living in South Korea currently, and the transportation system here is peak. It is incredible. The buses, the trains, everything. It's on time. In fact, sometimes the trains and buses show up early, and let's say you don't want to do that, they have taxis out the wazoo out here. So it is completely optimized for you to get from point A to point B anywhere in Korea, no matter what. Now I know we're gonna have some North Korea jokes, so I'm not obviously talking about North Korea. I'm saying South Korea, obviously. Anyways, our next comment says, they constantly compare their states to countries in Europe, but almost none of them have what most European countries have when it comes to public transport. Then all of a sudden, states don't matter and the entire country becomes too big for one state to have a train or some buses. Weird. Also, the US is the 4th largest country in the world. Has anyone ever heard anyone from the top 3 talk about the size of their country in the same way the Yanks do? It's real, I'm 6 foot, but actually 5'10" behavior. Yeah, exactly. We bring it up when it's convenient, but the second that we lose an argument when we bring up the size of our country and everything gets thrown to the wind. Very good point though about the transportation education system. Like I say, it's another dumb, ignorant statement. And again, you can get a few giggles out of that. But these comments absolutely peak as far as the clapbacks go. And we have a lot more where that came from. As our next post says, they'll be like, my country accomplished XYZ and their country is the size of North Carolina. Here we go. Another size comparison of the United States with Europe and a state being the size of a country, blah, blah, blah. The rhetoric continues. Let's go ahead and look at the post that this was referring to. The post here is in reference to a comment, and this comment says, they'll be like, well, my country accomplished XYZ, and their country is the size of North Carolina, and they have socialist administrative safety nets, LOL. Like, do Europeans not understand how huge the US is and how we have no socialist safety nets? Let's go ahead and dissect that real quick before we get into these comments. All right, I know I've been very hasty with getting into the comments because I absolutely love reading the responses to some diabolical bullshit like this. But let's go ahead and break this down real quick. When this user said they'll be like, my country accomplished XYZ, and immediately goes to talking about the size of the United States in comparison to the size of Europe and the countries within it, how the fuck does that correlate? How does that correlate? That doesn't take away from the fact that whatever country in Europe accomplished whatever it accomplished, still accomplished what it accomplished. Size has nothing to do with accomplishments, okay? It has nothing to do with accomplishments. The correlation doesn't make any fucking sense. Oh, goodness. Are you meaning the governments that take care of their people and you're jealous? You know, it's crazy. I feel like the main reason the United States is able to get away with mistreating its citizens in the way that it does, right? I mean, there are a lot of pros to being in the United States. There are a lot of cons that I've realized after leaving and traveling all over the place. And I'm like, dang, why can't we have some of those benefits? Every time we bring up things like, hey, what about if you guys are adamant about increasing taxes, let's repurpose some of those taxes so that people can have lower costs of education, free healthcare, even affordable, healthy food, even. How about boosting our infrastructure so we actually do look like a first world country that is competent? Every single time those ideas are brought up, the citizens complain. They're like, oh, you want a socialist state, huh? Oh, yeah, socialism, communism. Ah. It's like we are keeping ourselves stuck. So the government can get away with doing whatever it wants, obviously, with no pushback or whatever, because we're so busy bickering amongst ourselves over whether or not we should be treated as basic human beings. It's crazy. It's like the brainwashing has reached new heights and we don't even see it for real. But the people on the outside looking in, they're like, oh God, that people are in the United States, living in the United States, there's such a large amount of people against free healthcare. I'll repeat that. There are a large amount of people that are against free healthcare. That should ring alarm bells. And the government's like, yeah, oh yeah. Why would you want free healthcare? Line our pockets. How is the government not giving a shit about citizens a flex? And that is exactly what I'm talking about. We indirectly brag about how shitty our government treats the people. I mean, you can see the government shutdown that's happening right now. And even still, the citizens continue to huff the copium. They keep huffing that copium. They're like, oh yeah, we don't need SNAP benefits, which, is like, the a government assistance that allows people in the United States to purchase food and whatnot at a lower cost, or even for some families that have a low income, they get some of that stuff for free when they go grocery shopping and whatnot. Yeah, the fact that that's not being paid out because of the government shutdown right now, and people are like, oh, well, nah, we don't need it anyways. I mean, of course, a lot of people need it and they realize that they need it. But in the same breath, whenever we mention, as from American citizen to another American citizen, we're like, hey, we probably should look into maybe voting for these things that will make our lives easier. The pushback from fellow Americans is, you want to live an easy life? You don't want to work to the bone and have zero free time and suffer and die? What's wrong with you? How dare you? It's crazy. I love how the commenter seems to think that socialist safety nets are just something that naturally occur in other countries like wildflowers, as opposed to being conscious decisions made by governments representing voters. Exactly. Again, this all boils down to people in the United States being allergic to living a good life that the government provides you. It's not like they run your life, right? It's they make it easier. What's wrong with us, man? It's insane. insane. Anyways, this next post is crazy. As it says, how do you know English? Oh boy, I know where this one's going. It can't be good. Well, as we see here in the post, it says, oh wow, you live in the US? And the response is Scotland. And then underneath it says, oh, that's interesting. And then the person responds, yeah. And then underneath that, this American user says, how do you know English? We should make a tier list of dumbass comments people have left on the internet, specifically from the United States. Cause what the f— A fellow Canadian naval officer and I were riding in a US aircraft carrier in the mid-80s. We sat down to dinner with a few of our American hosts. Conversation ensued. After almost 45 minutes of talking back and forth, one of the American officers asked my Canadian colleague about his slight accent. He replied that he was a francophone Canadian, to which the American asked, "You speak English?" Colleague was incredulous and said, "What language do you think we have been talking?" What the hell's going on here? If you are speaking the same language and there's just a slight accent difference, you're curious about whether or not that qualifies as English? So if it doesn't sound like American English, it's not English. So when you hear a British accent, that's not English at all. That's not English at all. That's a weird language that doesn't... Huh? When you listen to a Canadian person talk and they're clearly speaking English, but they have an accent, you don't qualify that as English. Oh my God. Well, there's a whole country of them to the south of me, you see? Yeah, very true. Oh gosh, man, I really can't believe there are people like that. But I've just had a conversation recently with some peoples that have said some absolutely off the wall bonkers things as well. And I'm like, oh my goodness. I wish I was making this up, but good Lord. I've heard some things in my life, but this is boneheaded, my guy. This is boneheaded. Well, my English partner bravely made the journey north and tamed the kilt-wearing savage that is myself. He spent years teaching me to talk properly. In all seriousness, though, English is our main language in mainland Scotland. Even if you speak Scots as your first language, like myself, you grow up bilingual with English because you kind of need it to live your life. I only speak Scots with my family and a few friends. The rest of the time, I'm using English. It makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. Now, I'm not going to lie. I have a few Scottish friends and stuff, and the one thing I will say they definitely have in common is you guys talk fast. Very fast. Very, very, very fast. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to slow it down by probably half to catch what you guys are saying. My brain processing power is cooked, man. I'm not getting any younger either, so it's a double wombo combo for me. Anyways, our next post says, because Europe is 1/3 the size of the United States. I'm pretty sure the focal point of this whole video has basically been posts of Americans talking shit about how tiny Europe is in comparison to the United States. And it's insane. I didn't realize this was like a primary point of contention amongst Americans here. Like, what the heck is going on? Anyways, the post in question here, at the top of it says, passenger trains in the United States versus Europe. Now, if we look down below, the top comment actually says, because Europe is 1/3 the size of the United States, which is a boneheaded ass comment. And underneath that, it says, you are a proud example of the American education system. Europe is slightly bigger than the United States. Jesus. Yeah, again, a little research goes a long way. Fortunately, we live in a time where we have the answer to most of our questions in the palm of our hands. You just have to pull your phone out and do a quick search and you can find the information there. You know what I mean? It's not like you got to go travel 20 kilometers to a library somewhere and do some wild digging through books and such. You have all the information in the palm of your hand. You should look at it, because people are willing to die on the wildest hills. And I'm pretty sure this user was willing to die on the hill that Europe is 1/3 the size of United States. That doesn't make any fucking sense. Anyways, our first comment says, I just read one of them say Texas is twice the size of Australia. Is it like a tick for them or something? They just seem to randomly blurt it out. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, how big do we think the United States is? It's not a small country. It's not a small country, but like, how big do we think the United States is? Oh God. Anyways, let's move on to our next comment, which says, the majority of them never leave the States. Of course. Also, it's kind of like a weird Ouroboros we have going on in the United States. Things are very unaffordable right now. So, of course, we are landlocked to where we live. And it's also, you know, it's like a double wombo combo, right? Everything's too expensive. So people can barely afford to travel outside of their own state, let alone the country. And then you have the propaganda, you know, ego boosting and definitely discouraging the citizens from traveling to other countries, because why travel to other countries when you have all of the riches and anything you could ever want right here where you live, right? So yeah, I think what it is low key too is like the suppressing of information. When obviously it's not a secret that our news outlets and our media is very biased and, you know, pushes various types of narratives to steer people in different directions and fearmonger and those things. When they successfully do that, it moves people to behave in certain ways. So when you discourage people to think outside the box, right? They never do. And the government that may or may not be doing some shady things to make people's lives difficult in the United States can keep getting away with that because the people just don't know that they're being mistreated. The people on the outside looking in know that the people inside of the United States are being mistreated in some degree, right? Not every which way but loose, but in a lot of ways that are easily fixable. But, you know, when your country is rooted in capitalism and the government's like, well, I mean, if we don't tell them, they'll never know. How can you know that you're being mistreated if you don't know you're being mistreated? The majority of them never leave the States, of course. Our next post says, every country on earth could attack the US right now and the US would win. I don't know what drug this individual took, but this is absolutely incorrect. Listen, no country on the planet can solo the world. That's impossible. You are fighting a battle from every angle possible. It's a battle of attrition. And I mean, it's only a matter of time before the smaller country gets overtaken by everybody and their pet cat. This person clearly was not thinking when they made this post, but let's go ahead and look into what this post entailed. This post is from a thread in Reddit called r/Camp Half-Blood. Now, the top of it said, is it possible for Olympus to move to Australia? Now, I don't know how we got to this point here in the conversation, but here in the thread, it actually says that's objectively not true. Russia is struggling with a war that would have taken the US hours. China is also in the verge of an economic collapse, and India is extremely underdeveloped. The US is currently the only world superpower, at least militarily. Underneath that, the responding commenter says, India is underdeveloped but rich. Russia is struggling with war, yet the US never won a war by itself. China is facing economic issues, but so is the United States, which is a very valid clapback. Underneath that comment, the person who made the initial comment responds by saying, every country in the world could attack the US right now and the US would win. Let that sink in. Again, what drug are you taking? Because that's objectively not true. Now, it is true that the United States spends the most money in the entire world on its military for sure. But again, you can't solo the whole planet. You can't. It doesn't work that way. Imagine, in the example I just gave, if the entire world was against the United States, including its neighbors, Canada, Mexico, South America, we would be cooked from every angle. Like, would we hold up our own for a little bit? Probably, but we would get cooked eventually. You can't solo the world. We can't. It's impossible. Every country could easily starve us out by putting sanctions on us and then us to oblivion. We'd be cooked. Yeah, just like that last war they won so quickly. Everyone remembers that, right? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It takes a village. It takes a village, right? Whenever I think of the United States getting involved in, armed conflicts and stuff, we're always working with another country. Always. We're always working with another country, or countries plural, right? It's not a isolated effort. And I think that's important. I do feel like you live in a big world, right? You might as well make some friends, some allies. We have some things that other people want. Other people have some things we want. We, get to a mutual agreement, maybe become buddies and stuff, and then, work some business deals with each other and trade deals and blah, 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 So unfortunately now the climate internationally has been very tumultuous. It's real bumpy. We're real rocky right now. Things have shaken up the international relations market in past months. Hopefully that turns around. Maybe it's just initial growing pains and stuff with the recent change of the United States administration, and that'll blow over. Is that the Who Would Win sub? The entire sub is actually just a U.S. military glazing sub about Americans fantasizing about how their military owns everything thrown at it. I believe that. There's definitely subs that are dedicated to various things. Like, I did stumble across a sub that I will be making a video on, and I found myself in the sub. It's called America Bad, right? And basically it's people pulling posts of other people off the internet in various places, YouTube, Reddit, what have you, TikTok, everything. And it's people who talk shit about the United States. Now, I criticize the United States. I love where I come from, but I do think that there are a lot of things that we could improve on. And I do think that the biggest issue, the number one issue that Americans have, is the lack of the ability to take criticism. This next comment says, let this sink in. The British Royal Marines beat the American Marines when massively outnumbered in war games. The SAS is much harder to get into than the Navy SEALs, with many more dropouts. SEALs apparently have tests that almost exclusively look at fitness, which is only half the battle. Sweden managed to sink a vessel in war games using a standard diesel-powered sub, bypassing all security and defenses. That was 2005. So those issues should be patched up by now. USS Ronald Reagan. The training for the British Army is just better. And while smaller than the Army in the US, tactically superior. Oof, oof, oof. We gonna see a lot of beef in the comments. I already know there's about to be a lot of beef in the comments. I'm gonna sit this one out, Chief. I'm gonna sit this one out. This is not my fight, but I already know the comments will be flooded with a lot of interesting clapbacks to this one right here. I'm not entirely sure about anyone else's caliber of training when it comes to special forces and whatnot. All I can say is I'm very aware that the United States does invest a lot of money in its military and training programs. So I also know that the British do invest a lot of money in their military as well. And historically, they've done very well in wars and stuff. So again, it's not my fight. I don't know enough to speak on that. Just ignore the guy who has stopped 8 wars now. Huh? Well, this post is actually a comment which says, just ignore the guy who stopped 8 wars now, saving millions of lives. Can't take liberals serious. The prize lost its credibility when it was given to Obama for doing absolutely nothing. It's a woke award. And this is in reference to the Nobel Peace Prize fiasco that just happened and whatnot. I believe Donald Trump was gunning for the Nobel Peace Prize, as well as a lot of other people, a lot of other world leaders. The internet had a lot to say about that. So we'll look at the comments. We'll look at the comments for sure. And our first comment says, remember when he was going to stop the Ukraine war on day 1 of his term? How many days since he was inaugurated again? Good point. But wars are complicated. I don't think they just end out of the blue. I mean, I'm pretty sure there was a peace treaty thing that was signed between 2 countries I will not name for obvious reasons. And one of those countries backed out of the peace agreement. So it's looking real crazy right now. It's looking real crazy. I think when you send the military against your own people would be a big mark against getting a peace award. Maybe wrong though. Hey, who knows? Maybe that doesn't qualify as a disqualifying factor of receiving the Nobel Peace Prize. Maybe you could do that and get the Nobel Peace Prize. That would be a bit diabolical, but hey, it is what it is, right? Right? Well, our next comment says, the Nobel Peace Prize should never have been awarded to Obama. It was indeed a farce, but to think that the current decrepit old man deserves it when he is nothing but a man of conflict, both domestic and foreign, economic and political, is completely insane. Very choice words here. And all I can say is everyone is very charged, but the recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize was, and you better thank the US for your cheap pills. Okay. All right. Where is this going? Well, the post in question here is actually a comment, and it says, you better thank the US for your cheap pills. The world keeps benefiting from American innovation while trashing it. If the US slapped just a 15% tariff on pharma exports, all European free healthcares would collapse in a week. This individual clearly does not understand how tariffs work. To be fair, I didn't even understand how tariffs worked for a while. I had to do a lot of research to figure out what a tariff even was. And then I was like, oh my God. It was basically like one of those cartoon moments where Elmer Fudd has the gun pointed at himself. And I'm like, oh Lord, this is not good at all. This is not good. But let's go ahead and see what the comment section had to say about this. As our first comment says, tariff. You keep saying that word, but I don't think it means what you think it means. I can't tell you how many times I heard that particular comment right after the most recent election in the United States, because a lot of people are like, tariffs, yeah, we're gonna put tariffs on all the countries and we're gonna make all this money and stuff like that, and things are gonna be cheaper for us but more expensive for you. And I'm like, I don't think you understand how this works, chief. Right? If countries are getting tariffed, imports are getting hit hard in the United States, right? Well, that means the corporations operating in the United States are going to upcharge the product and make sure that, you know, they make their money on the back end. You're going to see a dramatic increase in pricing on commonly used items and whatnot. It's bad. And for smaller components, right, because this could be tariffs on anything. Put tariffs on whatever. And if it's materials that go inside, for instance, computers or, you know, various electronics and what have you, the price of the entire thing goes through the roof. And, you know, cars and PCs and whatnot are already expensive. So imagine, like, you know, a dramatic increase because the components inside were also included in part of that tariff. It's insane. Pills, which are often researched and produced by European companies. Tell me again, who created your precious Ozempic? Also, those 15% tariffs, first of all, would affect yourself. It's you who would have to pay even more for those, not us, on top of already life-ruining costs. And you wouldn't have any other choice because you're buying them. You most likely are depending on those meds. Our prices are regulated by our legislations and directives. I know it can be a bit strange for you having something for the benefit of the common citizens. I know. We're going to be fine. Over in the United States, we are not fine right now. There is a lot of turmoil financially currently as I upload this video. It is not great, but hopefully we pull ourselves out of it sooner than later. Now, our next post is our final post, as it says, the foreign fans don't respect the American national anthem. That right there alone should be obvious, right? Why would anybody go out of their way to respect a national anthem? Now, obviously, you don't have to be disrespectful whenever a country's national anthem's playing, right? Like if you go travel to another country and they are being disrespectful while the anthem's playing, you don't have to be disrespectful, but why would you go out of your way to show respect to another country's anthem? You know what I mean? It don't make any sense. But let's look at the context for this before we dive too much deeper into this. And it says, this was heartbreaking to watch as an American WWE fan. America is the reason why fans across the world can watch WWE shows live, but the foreign fans don't respect the American national anthem. At the WWE Crown Jewel show, WWE kicked things off with the American national anthem, but the fans in Perth booed the American national anthem. Crown Jewel is off to a rough start. Lots of questions here. I mean, what's the relationship with the United States and Perth? You know what I'm saying? What's going on? I wouldn't be surprised if the WWE held a wrestling match in China and the entire crowd booed during the national anthem, because we are actively beefing with China right now. That's insane. So I don't know what the politics is with Perth and the United States or whatever, but it don't seem great. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But why would you expect another country that is not your own to give the same type of patriotic respect to your flag as you, when they're not from the United States? It doesn't make any sense. But I mean, I digress. Again, I do stand by the fact that you don't have to be disrespectful to anybody's flags or national anthems or what have you. You don't have to do that either. You know what I mean? You could just be like, cool story, bro, and keep it pushing. Now, our first comment says, anything but looking in the mirror and asking why others around the world feel like booing seems like a tame way to protest a country's regime. Well, yes, we have not been the most pleasant recently, so I do understand why we are getting a lot of boos. You know what I mean? They're booing, obviously, for the choices that we've made very recently, and it has not looked good on the country at all. The fact that America is a shit show and their leaders show complete disrespect to their closest allies is one thing, but WWE playing the American national anthem in a foreign country completely tone deaf at the best of times. If the British national anthem was played at an Australian event, I'd expect the Aussies to boo that too and wouldn't blame them one bit. Yeah, I didn't even think of it that way either. The event was hosted in an entirely different country and they played the American national anthem. Of course they're not going to have any respect for that. What? Are you kidding me, bro? What? It's so weird because Trump has been telling everyone that he's restored respect in the USA all around the world. It's like the guy lies or something. Well, the saying goes, how can you tell if a politician or a lawyer is lying. And the joke is they just open their mouth. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it's every politician. They'll say one thing, their actions do something else. It's a tale as old as time. And we're seeing the effects of that real bad right now. And the world is not looking at us very, very, very great. I will say that. So if you guys like this video, let me know in the comments down below. I will be streaming more on twitch.tv/JamesBrayGang. Link will be in the description down below.